Welcome to Mediascape Insights from Digital Changemakers, a speaker series and podcast brought to you by USC Annenberg's Digital Media Management program. Join us as we unlock the secrets to success in an increasingly digital world. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Mediascape Insights from Digital Changemakers. In this week's episode, we are joined by a very dear friend who we are proud to welcome as faculty for the DMM program here at USC Annenberg. His name is Brian Garrett. Brian Garrett is a founding partner of Crosscut, which is one of the leading venture capital firms in Southern California. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Joseph. Excited to join you here and excited to join you at USC.
We're going to have a really fantastic journey together, no doubt. Even though we've been friends and colleagues for a long time, but now to be working together in this academic capacity, doing what we both love best, which is empowering, equipping, and igniting the dreams of the next generation.
No doubt. And I've seen you firsthand with your students, so it was inspiring for me and made me want to do more than be a guest judge in your class. So thank you for helping me get the opportunity.
Absolutely, and thank you. All right, well, let's jump right into it, Brian. Take us back to the beginning, if you would, please. Before you became a VC, what were you up to coming out of undergrad?
Yeah, I finished my industrial engineering degree at Stanford in 1995, and my volleyball career abruptly ended with a coach telling me that you can't teach height. And so I felt lucky, I guess, to stumble into Silicon Valley in 1995 as the first bubble and first tech boom sort of started there. And so my first job out of college was strategy consulting. Think of it as a McKinsey or Bain knockoff that was doing really interesting business plan writing, go-to-market strategies, pricing studies, competitive analysis for a bunch of new startups that were mostly software-oriented solutions for that first iteration of the web.
Marvelous. And then did you start your entrepreneurial journey before you became a VC?
I did. Before I went back to business school, I spent some time in a startup called Niku, and I launched a small business solutions set for basically solo entrepreneurs. And then I spent a year as I was on deferral before business school, running my own consulting practice and working with a bunch of different companies. I'm not sure where the entrepreneurial bug came from. I mean, obviously watching the internet ecosystem in Silicon Valley during those days, but I also had a father who was quite entrepreneurial, not necessarily in tech, but just one of those guys that kind of came from nothing. He came through the foster care system of East LA and was willing to roll the dice around his ideas and put, the family at jeopardy along the way to kind of create new opportunities. So it never seemed out of norm for me. It was just sort of this idea of like, if you have ideas, you chase them and you try to make them happen.
Amazing. Tell me what it is that a great VC does. For the folks in our audience, some of whom probably know this very well, but I'm sure that every VC, if I asked them this exact same question, would give you a different answer. What is it that you love about it? And really, specifically, what is it that you do as a VC, an early stage? And by the way, we should define that because there's lots of different stages of VCs, but talk about the stage that you're in and then how it works.
Yeah. So for the last 23 years, I started in venture in 2001, and I've been basically doing seed and early stage my entire career. And what that means, that's first check writing behind an entrepreneur's ideas, or maybe they've got a couple customers, a little bit of product market fit, and they're looking to raise a couple $1 million to scale their go-to-market efforts. Most of my peers would say a good VC knows where markets are heading and is out there looking for solutions to the problems they see coming within those markets. I think that's kind of a bunch of hogwash. I'm not sure anybody is prescient enough to know where the world is headed. So my answer to your question, Joseph, is that a good early stage VC is intellectually curious, needs to read a ton and try to understand emerging market dynamics. But mostly they need to show up and be a good sounding board for the entrepreneur, because it's the entrepreneur that is picking an idea of where the future is going, is setting their sights on a market, a product, an opportunity set. And really all we can do is use our pattern recognition gained from years of looking at tons of deals and challenge those belief systems in a way that's supportive, not trying to make ourselves look smarter than the entrepreneur, but in a way where I build trust with you and you say, man, I'd love to go, have that person's capital and work with them in building this business and hitting these milestones. So really, and this kind of comes back to my interest in teaching, early stage venture is about mentorship. And it's about trying to help a young entrepreneur navigate the fluid landscape of company creation and go to market and selling at scale after selling to 2 or 3 customers. There's patterns in the way this is done that I've seen from having done it for 23 years. And I try to bring that to the table when I engage with a young entrepreneur to say, hey, let's go on this journey together. And ultimately, that's the nuanced dynamic of a relationship between an early stage investor is, can I build trust with you? Do you trust me to tell me the good and the bad? And can we go on this journey together and solve the problems that we face? Yeah.
I'd love to ask you a couple questions. We're on this topic of entrepreneurs. When you're meeting with an entrepreneur, can you give me a sense of what it is that you're looking for? I remember reading and hearing a podcast from Kobe Bryant where he said, after all the vetting, all the numbers, he was looking for obsession, was the word that he used, which was, of course, very fitting for Kobe Bryant because that's the kind of person he was and that's the way he played the game of basketball and probably lived his life. What are you looking for in an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I've answered that question pretty much consistently over my career. I'm looking for that fine line between confidence and arrogance. And I want the individual to be confident in their beliefs, but not so arrogant that they're not willing to listen and acknowledge that they were wrong. And what I've seen over my career is most of the time we're all wrong. The entrepreneur's wrong. I'm wrong about my thesis. And ultimately you pivot and navigate your way to something that is repeatable and scalable. And so it's intellectual curiosity, both from the entrepreneur and coachability and confidence and strength in belief in self that allows them to overcome these challenges that come at them daily. And so in my diligence, I spend a lot of time with the individual and I spend a lot of time understanding their personality traits, what drives them, what life experiences they've had that have them build this conviction that this product is needed in the world. And so, yeah, it's part obsession around that because, what we have is a finite amount of time in our life to chase our dreams. So why this dream? Why you? Why now? And is there a healthy lens around why you want to take your entrepreneurial time to solve this problem? That's probably 80% of my work.
Fascinating.
It's almost more of a psychologist lens. And that's why I use the word mentorship and, sort of mental makeup of the founder, because ultimately, and I've said this to numerous people, like not everybody needs to raise venture to achieve their dreams. And when you do, it has to be about the partner relationship you have, the person that is working with you on this task. Because if you don't bring your best self to the table every day, and if I don't know how to help you get the best out of you, we're going to fail. It happens all the time. And so trying to create alignment of vision, alignment in the conversation around your strengths and your weaknesses and what I can do to support that or augment that with coaching and additional recruiting help to balance out your strengths with your weaknesses with additional resources. That is our job. It's a puzzle. And we're trying to put the pieces together to say what's going to lead to a successful business here.
Now, conversely, if a young entrepreneur is coming to you, okay, wait, let me try that again because I don't want to say young entrepreneur, right? Because entrepreneurs are of all different ages. So editorial team, wipe that away. Let's try that again. Conversely, if an entrepreneur comes to you, they might be so excited that they would go, oh my gosh, I'm going to take any investment opportunity that comes towards me. But if they're pitching to a number of different VC firms, that might not be the right strategy. They really should be looking for the right partner investor, VC who is going to be the right fit. So what should an entrepreneur be looking for in a VC if they're fortunate enough to have offers and interest from multiple firms?
Absolutely. The easiest one is references, other entrepreneurs that the VC has worked with to understand how they act and behave through good and bad times. We've just finished a very interesting period in venture where we had a 8-year up and to the right cycle, and money was plentiful, and firms, everything they touched, got the up round. The question really is, how do you behave in down cycles? How do you behave when things aren't going well? Is your first inclination to replace the CEO and founder as the venture investor? So, ask that track record. How many founders have you replaced? What is your reputation with your other founders? I'd love to talk to a couple of them. Trying to understand the personality and style. And, ultimately what you're looking for is a steady Eddie, someone who's been through a bunch and doesn't get overly emotional about the good or the bad, right? You want a cheerleader, but you don't want someone that just makes you think you walk on water. You want someone that challenges your ideas. But when things go bad, you also want someone in your corner and being like, hey, I understand this is a rough shot you just took. What can we do to get past this? What can I do to help? And very few people get to that level of relationship with their firm because they're just looking for the brand, and they get assigned a junior partner that doesn't have a lot of experience, or someone who's, sort of emotionally erratic. And that's usually where these things fall apart. I'm seeing it now, behavior amongst many investors as the market has gone soft, and they tend to be out for themselves, protecting their own interests, not looking at what the right cap table should be if we get through this bad, time period. They're just out for blood, trying to optimize their potential return on a downside scenario. And, I won't work with those groups again. And I'll call it out too, because I did yesterday. Just incredibly bad behavior at the board level.
So can we talk about the cycle and the journey of if an entrepreneur, let's say they're coming out of school? In our program, we have a very high emphasis on entrepreneurship and what we call intrapreneurship, which is that idea of developing a great new project idea within an existing company. But let's talk about entrepreneurship. If a student is in our program, they develop an idea for a fantastic new business, and they've now graduated, and they're thinking, I'd like to go and begin pitching to get some investment money. What challenges do they need to overcome? What do they have to have done before it's a good idea to start pitching to VC in terms of traction? We talk about building a minimum viable product, getting a small handful of customers, get some feedback, or is it enough that they come to you with a great idea and a small team? Tell us what young entrepreneurs should have done and have developed before they come and begin seeking investment.
Sure. And the answer to that question really depends upon, where we are in the news cycle. And so everyone needs to understand we have big up markets where money is plentiful and interest rates are low. And then we have down cycles where venture capitalists are sitting on their hands and the bar is extremely high to get them to get excited and want to write a check. We are definitely in one of those down cycles right now. So it's not, I always describe it as like, it's not the best time to be an entrepreneur because capital is not plentiful, but it's also the best time to be an entrepreneur if you have a really great idea, because there's less competitors trying to capitalize and build a Me Too offering. So I love having capital in down cycles. I hate raising capital in down cycles, but I love having it because I tend to find that the entrepreneurs that approach me are there for the right reasons, as opposed to, oh, it's fun, it's trendy, let's be an entrepreneur, right? So we are currently in a down cycle. And my advice to all entrepreneurs in that scenario is you got to do more with less. You got to bootstrap your way to more than you thought you would before you approach the venture firm. And obviously, the stage of the firm matters. There's a pre-seed nomenclature or an angel nomenclature, a seed, a series A. Those are fluid definitions. But in general, if you want to approach a seed stage fund, and let's call that $1 million to $3 million raise, I would advise that you have more than an MVP. You have, 3 to 5 customers, depending upon the profile of the customer and what the solution is. If it's enterprise, 3 to 5. If it's consumer, hundreds, thousands. And everyone cares about stickiness and usability and how often you're in the application, how mission critical it is, things like that. All those things are factors that we measure, because what we're trying to do is extrapolate capital in, continued growth, next round of financing. Will I look smart when I take this company to market to raise their A? We reverse engineer everything, and we're using the best data we have to say where you are now, is that repeatable and scalable? That's the exercise for every venture capitalist. They might tell you something different, but really they just don't want to look stupid. So they're saying, if I give you money now, what's the likelihood that I'll be able to raise more money at a higher valuation, and thus I can puff my chest and say I'm a great investor?
Now, let's say you've made that investment with this entrepreneur and their team. What happens next? Do you say, here's the check, here's the money, I'll see you in a few years, or maybe we'll check in once a year? Or are you helping them put together timelines, benchmarks? Tell us what that looks like over the next, and how long does that last for? Yeah. Is it, how long?
As a seed investor, we are funding 18 to 24 months of runway against a budget that we work with the entrepreneur on. And that budget is tied to milestones that we think we can achieve with this capital. So our money doesn't go in until that's agreed upon and until we've done the market work to validate that your forecast and projections are feasible. And we usually discount that a bit, and then we test it with certain customer sets to say, hey, is this a problem you're facing? Would you be interested in this type of solution? So our diligence process is pretty in-depth around getting comfortable that the plan that we're signing up for is achievable. And then our process, not everyone's, but we are high conviction, high ownership oriented investors. And what that means is we're investing in 6 to 8 total deals per year, which is basically 1 to 2 per partner. And so it's high touch. It means every 2 to 4 weeks, we are sitting down with you. We try to create, I care less about board structures these days. I care more about good governance. And most importantly, as we try to get you to your A round, we try to define a set of key performance indices, KPIs, that we measure the success and traction of the business against. And so usually the way I do this, it's more of a coffee meeting than it is a formal presentation. And it's like, what's going well? What are you struggling with? How can I help? And then how are you measuring the success? And are we headed towards the milestones we want to achieve? And if so, let's package this story up and take it to market to raise the next round of financing.
As you know, our focus is on media and multimedia here in our program and for our listeners. So over the years that you've been investing, how has the media investment or investment into media and multimedia companies, how's that gone? Is that something that you've done frequently, infrequently? What have been the challenges, opportunities? What are your reflections on investing into early stage multimedia companies?
Yeah, it hasn't been a big focus for us in general as a fund. Our history was really more ad tech and e-commerce, which were really kind of the entrepreneurial opportunities that were rising when we started the fund back in 2008. We've always had, I would say, like 1 foot in the media landscape, because if you're in LA, you can't not be. And so we looked at what I would call a lot of the evolutionary technologies when you shifted to, video on demand. Back when I really started in 01, 04, that was a new concept, to now streaming technologies. And then you went from, the rise of YouTube and the rise of multi-channel networks that were supported by ads. And now you look at the influencer economy and everyone being a content creator and the commerce opportunities that come off the back of that. I sit right below me is Mr. Beast's whole operating business. And he's built, a ton of extremely successful products off the back of his influence on YouTube. So we've watched all of that. It hasn't been an active area of investment for us. And really now we've shifted to a lot of the deeper tech stuff that's happening in Southern California off the backs of SpaceX and Anduril and the prime contractors. So it's been an amazing evolution to watch. That said, there is still a ton of innovation happening in media and digital media. And I spend time looking at a lot of stuff in AI video creation and the opportunity set that how that impacts Hollywood and the whole storytelling component of media and the video creation aspect of media. So it's one of the most interesting times in that category. And I'm still relatively well versed across of it because it comes through my inbox daily. And it's a really unique time with a ton of opportunity to innovate.
Got it. You were going the place that I was going to ask you next anyway, which is this. If you put yourself in the shoes of one of our students or somebody who's graduating now with a master's degree in digital media management, we know that media, storytelling, content creation is necessary in every industry across the entire landscape. It doesn't have to be a media company that they graduate and go work for. They could do multimedia in healthcare, in real estate, and on and on and on. Absolutely. So my question is this. If you put yourself in the shoes of a recently graduating student and they're saying, what's coming next? What are the big industries that I should be focusing on and thinking about as I prepare myself to go and be a digital media executive, leader, manager? What do you see on the horizon in the next 5 to 10 years that our students should be well aware of and aiming towards?
Yeah, the easiest answer, and I tell this to my own 20-year-old who's studying TV, film, and media in Michigan, right? It's like Hollywood's in a state of transition. And again, Hollywood is a catch-all phrase for storytelling. And what's changing right now, it's the rise of AI tools. And no matter how old school you are, AI content creation tools are impacting your business in Hollywood. So any young talent should be on the cutting edge of what's available, how to use it, and they will be infinitely employable, in my opinion, because the old school people have no clue what to do with that kind of stuff, and they're scared of it. And so the more you can alleviate that fear by showing how they can leverage it to their advantage. And to your point, Joseph, that's not just about traditional Hollywood and production houses. It's about how do I leverage these video tools across any vertical where storytelling is important. And if you can do that, there are jobs available. There will be jobs available for a long time. Everyone's so scared that AI will get rid of those jobs. I don't see that happening. I see still human in the loop with the ability to leverage those tools to reduce cost, increase quality, and speed up the creation process in a way that allows all of us to leverage video to our advantage.
Thank you so much for that perspective. It's been a strange time within academia and in our program as well, as we're saying to our students, AI is here. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. So we should all be using it, experimenting with it, finding that border of where ethics come in. Are these AI's ideas or are they your ideas that are being supplemented, supported, amplified, and made more efficient by AI, which is what I personally believe. And I totally agree with you. We have to use these tools. Otherwise, you're like somebody who says, well, I don't really use a calculator because I want to do the math the old-fashioned way. Let me get out my pencil. That just won't work. Just won't work.
You'll be left behind.
For sure. Brian, as we get ready to wrap up this wonderful talk, one of the things that I always love to ask our guests, and I know that you love to talk about as well, is one simple question, which is take away all the skills that you've learned, take away all the knowledge that you have. And very often there's some simple, meaningful North Star secret sauce that drives you every day, that is the ticket and the key to your success. What's one piece of advice? It could be a piece of life advice or professional advice, or maybe they just blend right together, that you could leave us with, that's your piece of wisdom that our students and our audience could take with us as we wrap up our conversation.
I feel like I got a lot of these in my head, but the one that comes to mind right now, because you and I have been talking about it, I look back on my education and my work experiences and all these things, and I don't think really any of them had a major impact on my, quote, success. I think the thing that's missing mostly today is social and emotional awareness, and a young adult understanding themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, their comfort set, the things that differentiate them, their strong sense of self, which I know social media has impacted and taken away from a lot of people, and constant messaging of I'm not enough. And so I just feel like my success has been my confidence in walking into a room, being able to read that room and understand the motivations of others to properly get what I want or articulate my ideas. And that's something that I don't think is taught. I think it needs to be part of the curriculum of undergrad and graduate programs. And it's the single greatest differentiator of what makes you resonate with someone when you're in a job interview or when you're in a sales position or when you're in whatever role you're playing. That ability to connect with a human in a very human way that's very authentic to who you are is probably the least taught and most desirable attribute you can have in a young professional.
Well, now that you are officially a faculty in the School of Communication at USC, we really look forward to having you add that to part of your insights in your curriculum and your courses and helping us amplify that across our entire program. I've read study after study, article after article, that employers say that the soft skills are one of the number one things that they're looking for when they're hiring someone. And that the skills, the hard skills, so to speak, are givens. We expect you to be able to perform at a high level. But then how we integrate with the team, how you integrate with clients, customers, partners, etc., and really create an experience that is positive, dynamic. As you mentioned, listening, so important, adapting. These are things that we know are invaluable when people are out looking for their next job, or in certain cases, raising money to go and make a dream come true.
Exactly.
Brian, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time, but most of all, your insight, your warmth, and VCs don't bite.
Some do. Try to find those that don't.
Right. All right. Thanks very much for being with us. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and learning about early stage venture investing and what it takes to be successful and move through that journey. I've always believed that entrepreneurs, that's like the greatest job in the world, the greatest calling in the world, because it's impossible to find the perfect job. But if you're an entrepreneur, you can take all these different priorities that you might have in your own life, in your own heart, in your own dreams, and put them together in new and interesting ways. And that can find an audience. And then you actually can construct your perfect dream job.
Yeah. Building the life you want is the greatest gift you can ever achieve. It's hard, and many people fail along the way, but those failures actually help shape you and mold you and help create the next vision and idea of what you want it to be. And so as long as you don't get struck down by failure, it's available to you. You know, I'm an example of it.
Thank you so much, Brian. All right, everybody, see you next time. This has been Mediascape, brought to you by the Digital Media Management Program at USC Annenberg. To learn more about the Master of Science in Digital Media Management program, visit us on the web at dmm.usc.edu.